has been an eventful year for RBI with Sanjay Malhotra at the helm. Governor Malhotra's first year at RBI brought cleaner rules, quieter reversals and a distinct shift in the tone. The policy rate has fallen by 125 basis points while the architecture of the institution has become leaner. Let's revisit the major achievements of the central bank over the past year with Ankur Mishra.
It's 11th December and RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra completes 1 year in office. And not only Sanjay Malhotra, the whole MPC was reconstituted under his leadership. And let's take a look of the major MPC things which has been done in last 1 year. First and foremost, of course, repo rate is now 5.25%. A good cut of 125 basis points throughout the year. And more than that, 100 bips CRR cut, which was provided. And of course, it infused liquidity in the system, which is still continuing because it started in September. And the shift of stance, it happened twice, but we are continuing on the neutral. Let's also take a look at other things which he has done. And of course, let's talk about credit flow measures. He has allowed banks to fund non-financial sector acquisition, and that was seen one of the major reform which was announced. Remember, in the last policy, as many as 22 announcements were made one by one, and it was just one policy. And he also permitted land acquisition financing via SPVs and also slashed the cap which was there for 10,000 crore for single borrower. Now, let's also take a look on the enhanced capital market limits, which was there from 1 crore 20 lakhs, which was there for loans against share, on that was revised, and also hiked the IPO financing ceiling from 10 lakh to 25 lakh per individual. And all these announcements, let me remind you, was happened in a single day, although the circulars came on later. Apart from that, if you talk about the digital reach, the UPI, there were several announcements which were made and which includes UPI linkages to 5 new jurisdictions, and also notified of first loss guarantee, or called as FLDG norms, which were announced earlier. Now also take a look on the liquidity measures. Now remember, in January, we were talking about deficit liquidity of as high as 3 lakh crore into the system. And now we are in surplus as per the latest policy, which is 1 to 1.5 lakh crore. And of course, there were OMO purchases which were done, and the latest announcement on dollar-rupee swap that needs to be considered, and short-term VRRRs to manage the transient surpluses. And more importantly, don't forget the 56-day VRR to manage the tax outflows, and that was timely to manage the liquidity. Let's also talk about the prudential regulation, and this happened right in the beginning of his tenure. Remember, there was earlier announcements which were spooking the markets as well as bankers regarding project financing as well as LCR. He held back for a while, gave enough time for banks for implementation, and finally that was reduced project financing to 1 to 1.25%, 5% provisioning norms for project financing were held back, and later on it was just announced for 2.5%, which was much better than what was anticipated. And not to forget the last thing, taming the inflation, and that is the mandate of MPC. In earlier year, you would have seen that the projection for FY26 right there in February was 4.25%, and now the latest policy says 2%, which is the lower end of the mandate of MPC, and that is where we see the projection for inflation as of now. Overall, I'll end with the last statement which was given by Sanjay Malhotra himself in a Goldilocks scenario where inflation is at benign 2.2% and the growth is at 8%. So ideal scenario where RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra is sitting now.
Now,